Welcome to Behind the Citgo, where we pull back the curtain on the unseen truth of addiction recovery and talk about things most people never get a chance to see. I'm your host, Josh Torbich. Each week, we're sitting down with people who lived it, led it, and are still learning from it today. This isn't polished, it's real, it's raw, and it's noted in the faith and hope because we do recover. So whether you're in recovery, walking alongside someone who is, or just trying to understand what healing really looks like, you came to the right place. Let's dig in. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Another episode Behind the Citgo. Really glad that you're here with us today. I got two friends, came from out of county. They're in the state, but they're out of the county. Yeah. And I wore my hat for one of them. Jim, I told you, I said, I need a hat. And he said,
I need to get you on.
Well, Jim's a mountain man. Coming from out in the Boone area, out west. So he doesn't have these regular hats that they got in Mount Monroe, right?
Yeah.
He has tassel caps, toboggans.
Toboggan hats.
We call it the high country.
There you go.
We call it the high country.
Yeah.
This is my very dear friend, Wes, CEO of Ground 40 Ministries, and this is Jim. He's the CEO of Freedom Farm Ministries. And we're really grateful that you guys came, have this conversation with us today. We have been cross-pollinating. This is something that a lot of people don't know about Christian recovery centers. While, let's just say, we're something unique and special, we picked from a lot of different orchards to make our applesauce. And y'all's two ministries are one of those orchards that we regularly picked from to take what you're doing, how you're doing it successfully in recovery with the people that you serve, and made sure that we were able to blend it into our own program. So first of all, thank you for being good mentors in the faith, and thank you for helping us grow in the way that, and I'm sure that you guys feel similar about each other.
Yeah, it's a dual relationship for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we've taken.
One of the things that's beautiful about this thing that we're working on, and I'll just frame this up before we get into the chat, we're all a part of a network. It's called Bridge to 100. And Robin Hayes is the person who really connected us at the hip and started helping faith-based ministries that are Christ-centered grow across the state. I'll tell you what our ministries have done since we've all kind of got in partnership and relationship with each other, it's really breathtaking. And I got so much gratitude for the footprint that we have in the state now and the people that we're able to reach. But today, the conversation that we want to have is a little bit, this is a very special time that we all get together to talk. Graduate of the program, in recovery, we're all in recovery. All right. So
I'm also a graduate of our program.
There you go. So you graduated Freedom Farms. Yep. I graduated from Christian Recovery Centers. You graduated from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yes. Yeah. The Lord dragged me through it by my foot. But he did drag me to solid ground. I'll say that.
So we're all in recovery, but we're all now leading the work of recovery. And I thought what a meaningful conversation for us to get through, just to kind of go through a good 45-minute chat of some of our hardest lessons learned in recovery. And this is what I always get into first when I think about the hardest lessons for me. I know this will resonate with y'all. Helping hurts sometimes. We've been burned. And most of the time I know that I've been burned because I wasn't able to set good boundaries with a lot of the people that we serve. We gave trust too quickly. We let people in the circle too fast, whatever that looked like. I know there's probably a million things that are popping up in your head, but let's talk about how leaders today and that are associated with our work balance that empathy while they still protect themselves from being burned unnecessarily throughout it.
Do you want me to start on that,
Wes,
brother?
I can tell that you got a story. It's just
I have a million stories. I'm terrible with boundaries, though. That's one of the hardest lessons I ever learned was you don't realize how quick and fast you're going to fall in love with people that you actually spend time with and that you have a hope for, and you do let them in. You let them get really close because there is a genuine desire to see them walk in a freedom that you know is available because you're walking in it yourself. And sometimes you just put all of your eggs in one basket, and you get close to people, you get close to their families. And let's just face it, we're living in a generation where the enemy, he's on the prowl, and his desire is the same as it's always been. He desires to kill, steal, and destroy.
Yeah.
And now either you get too close to them and they do let you down, or they do, they kind of stab you in the back, or they spit in your face, or they vomit on your shoe, or they end up passing away. Those are the ones that kind of really hurt the hardest. I don't really hold grudges. So as long as there's breath in their lungs, no matter what they've done to me, I still had this desire to see them walk in freedom. So the painful ones are the ones that there was really no closure in after you've poured out and you've poured out. And it is, it's a hard position to stand in as a pastor and a director. I don't know if you feel this or not, but we're almost standing on two different platforms 90% of the time. You're either the pastor of a ministry where everything that you do, you don't want anybody to know about it. It's nobody else's business. You don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. But then on the other hand, on the other side of that coin, you're the director of a nonprofit organization where there are lots of moments that the community that is supporting you has to see. So a lot of these things that you go through that could be private and you could probably manage them a little bit better privately have now become public. That is relationships. That is when you get really close to somebody and you let them in the inner circle really fast, and then they do what people do. They miss the mark, and it's very public. So it can be a tightrope walk sometimes. But I'll say this on, one of the biggest lessons that I learned through this whole process was not actually in the men. Sometimes the greater offense comes from the organizations that profess to have a desire to want to see people walk in freedom, and the difficulties in what we have found now. Brother, I've been trying to partner with organizations since 2018, trying to share it in the burden, to try to not turn someone away because we don't have a bed. So everything that we get to be a part of right now is a lot of prayer and a lot of petitions to the Lord that he would make a way for partnerships like this to happen, because most of the pain that I've experienced this whole time was the loneliness walking through it without other organizations. When we got 6,200 congregations in the state of North Carolina alone, and the Great Commission is go and make disciples of all nations, and it feels like we don't really do that. And when you try to invite someone in to make disciples, they're like, glory to God as long as it's credit to man. So one of the hardest lessons I learned was not everybody really is for the expansion of the kingdom of God as much as they are for building up their own kingdoms. And one of the greatest lessons I learned on top of that is the God of all creation is still in control, and he still has men out there who are willing to partner for the sake of the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. So the years of pain are now coming to a place of provision where you see God step in, and he's surrounded us with a group of people that they say what they believe and they believe what they say.
Yeah, that's good. Jim, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the conversation we had last night, which was pretty encouraging to me, that we all kind of in the early stages, we would get super offended, when people would let us down and whatnot. And, the Bible calls us to walk alongside people, right? Yeah. And, you soon get faced with the fact that you're walking alongside people has become conditional. As long as you're doing what I want you to do, I'll walk alongside you. Yeah. And I think we all learned that lesson pretty hard, and at the beginning and whatnot, it sounds like, to move. When it comes to boundaries, I found that the problem I started having was not that I had boundaries, was that I wouldn't stand on them, And I think it's really important. We had a conversation yesterday with a group, and Anthony said, some of the best things you do for people is fire them, right? And that comes from having a line drawn in the sand. And I think that each organization needs to discuss with their team what those lines are, and then hold the line. You have to hold the line, right? And because you guys all know this, if you don't hold the line in your environment, then everybody wants you to change the line for them. So it's you have to get into the understanding that you're harming everybody else around you by not holding the line. You're harming this person in front of you from not experiencing consequences from things. But with all that said, one of the other bad lessons or hard lessons to learn was I got real good at holding the line, but then it was like dismiss them as soon as they cross the line. Now we have an actual plan, kind of like what we were talking about. It's like, hey, you've crossed the line here, but I want you to get help. So, call my friend Wes, call my friend Josh. There's other places to go. I'll help you get there. And that, I think, has been the final piece of learning to be able to offer them help. And then you still have some people that, that just say, I'm good. And I think you guys probably have a lot of repeat offenders. We call them repeat offenders, and I don't know how many times people have left and then wrote stuff about me on Facebook and Google and all kinds of stuff about how terrible a person I am. And then, months later they call me and can I come back? And, first meeting, they're like, I can't believe you let me come back after all that stuff I said. Hey man, I was like, hey, I know where it's coming from. I just want to see you get help. And they're like, if I hadn't gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be here today getting the help that I need. And a lot of times the repeat offenders are much more seasoned to get help, actually, because they've been held to account. So
what you're doing is really saying something that I think about often. It's, while they're with us, I believe they're in the care of God. That's what we've tried to facilitate for them. But a prayer is, once they've squandered the opportunity with us and they have crossed that line, hey, sorry, you stepped over it. We can't continue. But God will present his care again.
Yep.
Just because that opportunity is gone. Wes, we went through an example like that yesterday. Yeah, you want to repeat that for the folks?
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a fella in your program, right?
We got boundaries. We got boundaries in the ministry, and same thing. And boundaries are healthy, not burdens, not heavy burdens, but boundaries that keep order. And maybe I'll answer a question and provoke another question. Is this early in the ministry? I just assumed that you show them the Christian standard and they're going to want to walk that way because that's why they're in a ministry anyway. They sign up, they come into a Christian organization. But it took me a while, because I'm not probably the smartest man, to realize that most of the boundaries that we were setting were for people who were spirit-filled, born again, and had a regenerated heart.
Wow.
What was happening is they were coming in professing the Lord, but there was no examination. There was no fruit to verify what they were professing, and the expectation for them to look like a born again believer was unreachable.
What do you say? Not everybody can be held to the pastor's standard.
Not everybody can be held again to a born again believer standard.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there's the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, long-suffering, gentleness, faithfulness, kindness, goodness, and self-control. Against such thing there is no law. And when these guys were coming in, we would just ask them, are you a believer? And it was kind of like a covenant relationship that we have. You're in a covenant place. You're saying you're a believer. Now you should walk like this. Discipleship is exactly what it is. You walk them through what it means to be a believer, what the gospel is, to make sure they understand what they're professing. So we've relaxed a little bit on the boundaries of the Christian look and have just set basic boundaries for the first 40 days. All the while we're preaching the gospel, declaring the gospel, praying the Holy Spirit would move, because I can't persuade them apart from the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. So the boundaries yesterday, they were crossed, not in a malicious way, but they crossed the boundaries.
What's a good thing to flush out?
Yeah.
A lot of people, they're tuning in to hear these nuances of how we set our standards. So this is something we all have in
Here's
common.
A boundary we have. In the first 40 days, there's no phone, no TV, no community interaction. It's a time of fasting. These guys are coming off of substance abuse. They're coming out of jail. And this hard transition back into society is overwhelming. So we do a soft transition where they can get through the withdrawal symptoms and get some clarity for some decision making. And if the guy chooses to call home and wants to leave, there's nobody who's offended at that. The difficulties we have is if they call home and the family won't come get them, then we're just like, we're their back burner option. Well, I got nowhere else to go. I guess I'll stay.
Hey, this place ain't so bad.
Yeah. Well, the problem that we've seen with that, you've seen it
all the time. Yeah.
After they begrudgingly stay, then they create divisions and frustrations throughout the rest of the group, and every guy wants to call home. So
cancer.
It causes a cancer. It does. And because we love all of the men in the program and we're trying to protect all of the men in the program, we can't allow them to stay. Not that we want to kick them out on the street. So what I did was I messaged Josh yesterday. I said, I need your help and it's an emergency. I have a guy who I really think he wants to stay in a program. I think he let his anxiety get the best of him. Unfortunately, that's going to create a domino effect if he stays with us. And Josh said, well, you're on your way down, bring him with you. We'll find a bed. It wasn't like, let me figure something out. I'll get back to you. He said, I'll find you a bed. And that's the kind of relationships that we've been looking for the past 8.5 years, because I hate to kick a man out to the point, and to my own detriment, is I've been accused of one of my greatest character traits is how much grace did I pour out. One of my greatest destructive character traits is how much grace I pour out, because there is that boundary when people just take advantage of grace. So I have kept people, and here's another thing people don't know. There's a difference between a wolf, a goat, and a sheep. And I can deal with a goat. They're just a stupid farm animal running around. They're kind of by themselves. They'll seclude off by themselves. Sheep, they're more pack herd mentality. They take care of each other. But a wolf, I don't care if it's a cub or full blown. If you keep it in with the flock, eventually it's going to do what wolves do, and it's going to devour the sheep. So trying to discern between those are always difficult. But like yesterday, the guy, best case scenario, he's not a wolf. He's not there to devour. He's not there to divide. He got anxious. He got frustrated. He asked to call home. His family told him no. Man, he wants help. Maybe ground 40 is not the place. And I'm not so arrogant to think, well, you ain't going to find it nowhere else. Yeah, there are other organizations now that we can call where this man's not, he's not going to end up in an early grave or in another facility where he doesn't have any kind of freedom. He's actually going to go to a place where he's going to hear the gospel a lot. He's going to have the opportunity to respond to that gospel, and he's going to walk in a salvation that was purchased by the blood of the Lamb. And it doesn't matter which program he's a part of. So those are the kind of things that I've been praying for that we now have.
You said the word arrogant, and this kind of it's a symptom, Jim. It's a symptom of our ego.
That's right.
That makes us think that we're in control of what God is going to be allowed to do in people's lives. And we were kind of talking about that yesterday a little bit, because while we were having dinner, we thought about how silly it was, how offended we would get when people wouldn't live up to the expectation, right?
Right. And that's exactly where the offense is coming from, is a kind of godlike mentality.
Mentality.
Like, the old adage, if everybody would just do what I say they do, then the world would be
wouldn't it be place, such a it would be utopia if everyone would just do as I say.
I counsel.
Whereas God says in Isaiah that his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. As far as the heavens are from the earth, that's how much different he is, the way he thinks and does, than we are. So yeah, he's in control, not me. And how am I supposed to show God's love to this person in this moment? Again, protecting, we have the same exact boundaries for the same exact reason. We even have another, I don't know what your boundary is about guys that leave the program when they can come back in, but we have a process before they can, 9 days, we're 6 months, or if they were to go to a place for 30 days and I can call and ask how they were doing, then we'll let them come in after 30 days. But yeah, that was the other problem. My former director would let them come right back in, and then they only came in because they had nowhere else to go. You
got a warm bed, you got some food. I'm not really looking to get well, but you got some resources.
I know this place, and I'm comfortable.
So when a guy picks up the phone, like we sit down and say, look, before you do this, you have to know, once this gets set in motion, there's no coming back, right? So if you call your family and they shut down your plan, like, you're not staying here. You've already, so.
That's the same one. And I think people think that's heartless, but what maybe trying to explain it, if it was one person in our programs every 6 months, just one guy, this could be manageable and it could be beautiful. But because there are 120 guys, 20 guys, 40 guys, all corporately living together, once that one person sets that thing into motion, then the expectation that everybody gets to do what you've allowed him to do, and now he gets to stay because he has no other option, then spreads across the organization. And instead of just dealing with one man, now we're dealing with 20 or 40 men who, all of them, every single day, they're fighting to stay in these programs. They are fighting to stay.
Yeah, like there's something pulling on each person.
They're overcoming addiction. They are finally sober, and they're at a place where they do want to see their family, and it's right for them to see their family. That's one of my biggest struggles is the separation from the family. I'm a family guy. I love to see families reconciled. I love to see a child see his dad sober. I love to see a wife sit beside of her husband, and she's not ashamed of who she's sitting beside. I love to see a mama hug her son, and there's not a stench of destruction all around it. So for me, I think people think, oh, they just want to keep them away from their family. That's one of the hardest things for me. Brother, early on, I would be FaceTiming families day one. Talk to your son. Look at him. Look how, but I had to set that boundary because ostracization, that separation is healthy. And grace through discipline is also a healthy response from leadership sometimes that people don't see. Can I tag one man for a lesson that I've learned over the years? You have reputations in your community of being, God honoring places, of loving people and bringing them in for free. And I think people don't understand that when you bring them in for free, especially this is Ground 40. There's nobody paying us for these beds.
Right.
There's a misconception that there's some secret envelope that shows up that every time you get more people in your organization, it seems to be an influx of currency that comes with them.
It's surprising how many people think that the state somehow has paid us.
They're not.
Whether they're empty or full.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. If we have one guy or we have 120 guys, the cost is the same. We're a legitimate nonprofit. We don't take insurance. We don't take bribes. The families rarely give us anything. And if they do, it's appreciated. We don't like to know that while the men are in the program because we don't want to treat them differently. So our secretary guards our staff from knowing if somebody does donate while a man's in the program, we don't know because we want to make sure that there's no favoritism, even if it just happens. We just want to treat everybody equally. But I think sometimes with our reputations, these men come into our program, they've had a terrible reputation. The family will tell us off gate, they're a liar, they're a manipulator, they've slandered our name, they've slandered their whole family's name. Nobody can get along with them. We're kind of like, we're done with them. They'll come to us for like 3 or 4 weeks, they'll get sober, and then all of a sudden they're trustworthy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm leaving the program because they're terrible. I'm leaving the program because, listen, our guys eat steak. Walmart distribution takes care of them. And we post pictures of our Walmart distribution days of when the guy's food comes in. And we post pictures of what we've cooked the guys. And a guy will be like, we were eating bologna and cheese sandwiches, which is still better than what they paid for, right. But it's not true. And instead of the family going, is this even a true comment that my family member is making of why he left? Or does he just want to leave? They just go all in for it. And the same thing, you get blasted on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
You get your reputation is just under attack. And then 6 months later, the family's calling privately now. They don't publicly respond and say, I'm sorry, you were right. What they said was they privately call you and said, man, he's messing up again. He's doing those same things he was doing again. I said, well, where's he at?
It does speak to the idea of, though, that codependency thing that we deal with all the time. And that we're in just as much the trenches of trying to teach the family how to interact with somebody who's sick and going through that illness or whatever, and struggling through the outcomes of it. While this person progressively finds God, develops a relationship with Christ, and instills more moral setting on their day-to-day basis, becomes a true disciple.
That's right.
That's not going to happen overnight. Let's cautiously stand back and just give them enough to see what they've proved to earn. That's a hard concept for a lot of families. Let me frame this one up for us too. You made me think about it. The folks who are coming into our programs, and I talk to Tyler about this often. When they arrive, they do have a genuine appreciation for the resources that you've given to them most of the time.
That's right.
They're happy to be, if they're coming from a homeless situation, they're happy to be off the streets. They're grateful that you got them a bed. They're grateful just to land somewhere. And it does often turn its ugly head after a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
You put some weight back on, right? Sometimes too much weight, but
Yep.
they're eating good. All the things are taken care of, and they kind of transition their desperation into that sense of like, well, I know what I need to do. And matter of fact, here's a few things y'all could do better while you're at it, type of thing. But when you see that, you know that's the space that they've gotten to many times before, and they have to break through it. They have to get to the other side where they're not satisfied with the progress that they've made so far. That's what Christ is all about. So their potential is way up here somewhere. And I think this is what I think about for us, and something that keeps us engaged with folks. It's hard to see someone for what they could be and not be frustrated with them not pursuing it as great as you can see it. Do y'all see that at
That's right.
all?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we actually teach pretty specifically in one of our classes about that. And I always explain to the guys that in order to grow in Christ, you need to grow in your awareness of how sinful you really are.
And yeah,
But the problem is, for most guys that come to a program like ours and yours, is that in their mind is, I'll never be as sinful as I was before I came to the program.
Yep.
And I was like, you got to reverse that thinking. I'm not saying you're going to become more sinful. I'm saying you start realizing more and more the depth of your sinfulness. And when you do that, you start to realize more and more what Christ has done in bringing you into a relationship with the Lord. And you start to appreciate him more. You know, I'm sure you guys have talked to people that have been walking with the Lord for years and years and years. And they say after 30 years, I know I need him more today than I ever did.
they do.
And they know that because of the depths of their own sinfulness.
And isn't that that's the sign of a well person. It's not that they've turned their back on the past and wish to shut the door on it and forget all that stuff. It's like, no, I am keenly aware of how miserable of a person, how treacherous I become whenever I turn back from the thing that I've committed myself to. Like, having that close to you is healthy, yes?
And most of them figure out that the addiction is just the tip of the iceberg. Some of them do. And those ones who figure that, for me, I was a heroin addict for 10 years. I thought my addiction was my problem. I thought it was my biggest problem. I thought it was the only thing I needed the Lord to save me from. Turns out I had a lot more issues than that. And that was I've been these guys. So I can empathize sometimes. You get to a place where you look around the room. I'm skilled in a lot of stuff. I say that as humbly as I can, as I had to work a lot of different trades and I knew a lot of different things. There was no true application to come out of the ditch, but I could operate in almost any arena that I was in had I needed to. So you then sit in a room with men. This is where the pride comes in, that you feel better, like you're better than them because your addiction wasn't as bad. It didn't take you to the depths of depravity. And then we over puff ourselves up and we're like, you know what? I'm really not like these guys. And here's something else. If you don't know everything about everything, then you don't really know anything at all, because the one thing that you don't know about everything changes that all the things that you thought you knew. So when somebody comes in there with a little bit of information about everything you thought you knew and changes your viewpoint, it lets you know that you don't know anything at all. And what I have noticed is, as smart as we think we are, it still gets us in the same room with everybody else who's in that room.
Yeah.
And that's where the humility comes in, is as good as I think I am, as better as I think I am than everybody else. It has still brought me to this same place. And guys, they come in out of homelessness, where they were eating whatever they could eat. They were wearing whatever they could wear. They come into one of our organizations 4 or 5 weeks, and now all of a sudden the standard of life has been raised. Oh, no, for me, quality's got to be better. And like I say, we get food from Walmart. This is the funny thing. And if I'm running on Josh, you stop. This is funny, is they come to us. We get food from Walmart distribution. We get it from Food Line too. And it's in date. It's in date. And if there's something that's even close to the expiration date, guys like me who came from some terrible situations, now have a standard of what we're willing to put in our body because that thing expires in 4 days. And we're like, not me, I'm not eating that. And that's some of our biggest complaints is like, this thing goes out tomorrow. And I'm like, that's the sale date. But on the side note, like, where were you at last month?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really?
It's quick. You can forget where you came from
really quick.
I'm glad that we record these things so that they can everyone will rewind it and go play back through what you said about if you don't know everything, you really don't know nothing, because the one thing you don't know couldn't turn it back around to change everything you think you know.
That's right.
So they'll rewind and go play that.
Yeah, I'll have to rewind that one.
Think about this with me. And I have a spaded outlook on this. All right. So this is a question. I got 2 other CEOs in the room. You got a lot of responsibilities. Sometimes you're like Atlas, some days juggling everything. I don't know if I can say that I've ever been burnt out before. I've been frustrated, agitated with the day. I don't know if I've ever gotten to a place where other people have described to me that they've been burnt. Like, I'm fried, I'm burnt out. But I know some really successful people who can describe very real where they've been burnt. Jim, burnt out before?
Yeah, so I've, you guys have heard of David Jeremiah, Dr. David Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, I was using some of his videos with our guys, and it was a series called Slaying the Giants in Your Life or something like that. And he did one on burnout. And he used Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, when after the destruction of Israel, they came back to rebuild the walls and temple. But the story was, he made it personal. He said, people always ask me, you, Dr. Jeremiah, like you're doing all this work, you're preaching all these sermons, you're always on the radio, like, aren't you worried about burnout? And he just said simply, he's like, look, if you feel you're burning out, it's because you're believing everything is on your shoulders. And he says, and you got to put it on God's shoulder. You got to trust that it's God that's in control. He's enabling. And that one small sermon, as I've felt it, I've definitely felt like, everything's on my shoulders. But then I start to realize I'm putting those things on my shoulders to a certain degree. And maybe I'm not communicating to the right people that, hey, look, I can't do this. I have a pride that I want to tell. I don't want to say I can't do something. And, I have to be able to communicate with people like, look, I've got too much on my plate.
You think it's all on you?
That's
good.
And the reason why I don't want to say is because I'm believing that if I don't do it, then it won't happen. Wow. Does that make sense? Which, look, a lot of that's there's a lot of what makes what we do well is because we have such perfectionist mindsets about how things go and need to go and whatnot. But we need to learn to let go about that and understand that this place doesn't, like, the sun doesn't rise and set because Jim Quigley shows up every day. This thing needs to operate when I'm not here, right? And that needs to be a goal.
That's good.
Yeah.
Wes, burnt.
Yeah. I've actually watched that David Jeremiah sermon series about slaying the giants and the burnout thing. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm really ignorant to taking sermons like that and applying them to my own life. I'm going to have to cap it so you understand. And this will help you too. And this will probably help a lot of the communities that we deal with. We take men out of prison, out of recovery, out of addiction, out of homelessness, out of high school, and we bring them to one of our 8 properties. Now we have 8 properties for a minimum of 6 months for absolutely free. I really don't think people believe that. I don't know why. They show up, they offer no money, they come into a program, and everything they need while they're with us is taken care of. And it even goes to as far as we take care of the families, food for the families, clothes for the families. We got 2 thrift stores we send these families to. We have church on Sundays at one of our properties because we couldn't send our guys out because that was stretching us too thin. And then our guys were getting prompted for jobs prior to graduation, and they were leaving the program, going to work for people that as soon as they relapsed, the guy was firing them, and they were persecuting our name. Like one of the Ground 40 guys fell, which is another topic that we can go on. We can have a guy for a day, a month, a year, 2 years, or 25 years Once they cross the threshold into our organization, I don't know if you feel this, they are labeled as a ground 40 guy. There are men who come to ground 40 and there are ground 40 men, and people don't understand the difference. We've had guys who come into our program and everybody can buy a hat from our thrift store.
I didn't buy this hat.
He didn't buy the hat.
Given to me.
I gave him that hat. But as soon as somebody puts on ground 40 gear or they come into the ground 40 program, they become ground 40's problem. It doesn't matter if they've gone to 20 other organizations and visited 50 other churches. Those churches don't take responsibility. Somehow we do. So going to the Burnout, I don't just get to be I don't even have an office. So I don't get just to be the director. I'm also the general contractor. I'm also the worship pastor, not because I want to be. I'm not built for this at all. I'm actually, if you've ever spent any time around me at all, I think people think I'm a people person. I'm really not. I would prefer to be upstairs hidden in a room by myself as I would be around a lot of people. That's just who you probably noticed that in the hat.
Yeah.
I'm not a people person, but because of the position the Lord's put me in as an evangelist and a director, and I do feel like I have a pastoral heart, I feel like I need to be around the guys. So 2020, we got a new property. I didn't really care to have a new property. I was satisfied at the farm. There were some people who said, get a new property. I said, I'll get a new property, but I'm not doing any of the construction. So we got the property and I held my word. I set my boundary. I said, I'm not touching it. And they said, we'll get all these volunteers to show up. Guess what? Nobody showed up. Mm-hmm. So we have a property. We paid $700,000 that we didn't have, that was now just sitting there being a mortgage payment. And, a year and a half went by and we'll sit down with the board. I love my board very much. We have a Doom board now. Those guys stayed with me for a long time. They fought beside of me. But I just knew what was going to happen. I knew if I didn't, this isn't pride. This is just accuracy. I knew if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. And I was exhausted from doing all it. And, I don't get paid for all these different positions. I get in. I'm not saying that to complain. I don't go do these different things because it's a added benefit to my family's, provisions. We just do it because you do what you have to do to make things go by. So a year and a half goes by, and I finally say, well, nobody's going to do anything to the property. I'll go do it. I begin to go through the preliminary issues of getting all the permits and stuff for this property. And I'm not a carpenter at all, but I had to step into the role of a GC. And at the time, the economy's not good. You couldn't find other contractors to come out there and help you. And so in the very early stages, there was just a lot of me and a few of the guys in the program walking through these things. The later end of it, people showed up and really pushed us over that line. But during that, I experienced some suicidal depression. I was by myself. And you go to talk to pastors about what you're going through, and you almost get blacklisted because you're being so vulnerable. And I can't remember, maybe it just washed off, one pastor who offered just to pray with me. I'm talking about, I talked to a lot of pastors about this suicidal depression, these thoughts that I was having. I know it's selfish. I get it. You don't have to tell me that. I know that those are unholy thoughts. I get it. You don't have to tell me that. I minister to men all the time. I know that what I was experiencing was supernatural spiritual warfare. I knew that. I just needed someone who could maybe possibly pray with me out of this, and I couldn't find anybody. All these people were telling me I needed to go to Christian counseling, Christian therapy. So I got one, and the Lord allowed me to come through that season. And as soon as we get through that season, I look back, and this is why I've stopped looking at what people say about me online, is because in that season when I was going through those things, I was not as available as I had normally been. And people were just like, oh, he's just selfish. He's self-centered. He's just off by himself. He's not caring about anything that anybody's going through. And I'm like, I'm trying to build a residential home so you guys could come to it. So I get through that, stop reading all these terrible comments. And this whole time, me and my wife been praying for her to have another baby. In 2023, she gets pregnant after we prayed. So I'm just telling you this burnout, and I don't get to stop. You don't get to stop. How you going to take a break? How you going to take a sabbatical? So because when you take a day off, your phone doesn't stop. She gets pregnant. We lose the child. I'm in ministry, and I'm pouring into guys day in and day out, guys who have experienced great loss, pain, depression, all these things. We're losing a child. Now I'm still pouring out to them, all the while that depression's coming back in because of circumstances I have no control over. I can't do anything for my wife. All I can do is sit with her and be with her. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can do to make her feel better. We get through the first loss, and we go through back-to-back losses after that. 3 more losses, 4 losses within 2 years in ministry. And we get through that. And I think I may have not been to the farm maybe 4 scheduled days, because I go Sunday to Sunday. I stop by one of our properties every single day. I kind of hang out at the farm most of the time. I get there early in the morning. I leave 5, 6 o'clock at night. During that season, I didn't go in on an intake day for a full day. I went in there just for a second to talk to the guys, and then I left and went home and sat with my wife. About a week later, there was a guy who came in on intake bashing me because I wasn't there being more intentional with the guys, and I'm the head of this place, all the while not concerned with what I was going through. And I was like, man, I'm tired of pouring in. I just got to that point where I'm like, man, I'm tired of pouring into people who they don't care that you're actually walking through something the whole time you're walking them through something. And we started losing like donors because I wasn't responding to a lot of, this is why I don't respond to as many emails anymore, because they don't care. A lot of them, what we were going through, we had a partnership where we were setting up doing like a big event once a year. And this guy called me. I didn't call him back because I was in the hospital while my wife was going through these things. And I just completely forgot. And he just attacked me when I saw him, how he deserved a response from me. And I tried to explain to him, man, this is what we had walked through. I'm really going through things right now with my wife and the loss of 4 children. And his response, again, wasn't really coated in compassion. So I felt that point of burnout, like, man, I'm just going to throw in the towel. If this is what it is, because on the backside, I think people think there's an added benefit to standing in ministry that is a legitimate nonprofit, other than why we do what we do. Like, I really just want to see men walk in freedom. That's it. Like, there's nothing else that persuades me to do this. I'm really good at trade skills. So, and I'm not lazy. Never been in trouble for being lazy. So those constant attacks, because I was taking it personally and I was putting those offenses on me, were causing some burnout. And I finally went home that night and I figured out that these offenses, they're not with me. They're not with me. They're not persecuting me. I'm not falling under persecution. Their anger, their frustration is with the Lord, and I'm just the representation for what that anger is being pointed to right now. And it really pulled me out of that season. Same way that at the end of the day, He's in control. He's doing this thing. And at the end of the day, if they're not right with me, it is what it is. My only hope is they get right with Him. So,
yeah, this is there's a thing that this is one of the last points we transition into with this chat. Leadership has to be sustainable. And what I've learned about it is that means that it has to allow its leaders to go through the same extent of problems that the people who are part of any exercise of the work do. And one of these things I think about all the time is Moses. When he got himself all twisted up and felt like the world and all these 2.2 million people's problems were sitting on his shoulders, he would sit in the tent all day and he would just listen to them come in and he would settle that dispute and then walk into that dispute and walk into that dispute. And he got to that place of like his wit's end. And that's where he truly deflated himself enough to where he could implement a plan that God was going to give to him probably anyway. But it was like the conditioning that I went through for many things I felt like was really getting me to that space to where I could create, actually bend in the right places to realize that I could let go of enough of this stuff. And that's a lot of the work. When you're telling these stories, I can see mirrors of myself in a lot of ways going through very difficult things, like just hard things, things that you wish that people would understand a little bit better, things that you wish that people would cope. I like what you said when you said it wasn't coded in grace, that he didn't interact with you in a way that's coded in grace. But there does, like, Jim, I'm thinking about this one too. Sustainable leadership is something you just talked about a couple paragraphs ago. That's a part of what we're supposed to do. And that means not making it to where when we step out, everyone feels like it's left. What do you think?
It's funny you mentioned that Moses passage. I wrote a paper years ago talking about a way to think about one another ministry, and the Moses passage and Galatians chapter 6 were both my passages I used to teach out of. And yeah, Moses was overwhelming himself because he had to be the answer guy. And I think if I remember right, it was my favorite biblical name. His father-in-law Jethro
Yeah.
came and said, "Look, you can't keep doing this. You gotta get people in charge to kind of take this off your shoulders." And he listened to him, and the Lord blessed him for that. But then in Galatians, it's pretty direct. It says that if anyone is caught in a trespass, it says, "You who are spiritual should come alongside them, right, and help restore them." But then there's a warning right after that watch out lest you get caught up in it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's speaking to people like us that are coming alongside people. We need to watch out. And like a lot of what Wes was saying, that frustration when you're taking it on yourself, a lot of it has to do with this expectation people have for you and this pride that you don't want to meet the expectation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's like, I don't want to let people down. Right. And the thing is that when you finally know who you are in Christ and can rest in that, I mean, I think we have to remind ourselves of that every day. It's not like there's a place where I've arrived, but in those moments, you have to remember who you are in Christ.
Yeah.
That is who I am, not what these other people are expecting me to be. And there's a balance there because sometimes people are calling you to rise to the occasion and you need to, but when you get to a point to where, like our brother Wes just said he was, a lot of that has to do with having a strong desire to meet people's expectations and just not able to do it. You're not able to do it, and you need to be able to come away from that like you did. So praise God he did, because that could be a pretty damaging thing.
One of the quiet struggles that I had, and I'm just now recalling this, and I've maybe told the story years ago, but one of the quiet struggles that I had as we started to grow was that I used to be what you're describing to 14 guys. Like, I was there. There wasn't a man in that program at any given time that I hadn't personally ministered to, prayed with, knew his mama's name, I just knew them. I was the one who supervised the phone calls, sat down with them. I did it because I lived on the campus with them for 5 years. They weren't just residents in a program that I was in charge of. They were my roommates. We'd get in the bus and could go to a racetrack and pick up garbage for 2 weeks together, sleep on air mattresses in a room piled up with 15 of them. Seeley remembers it. Seeley was my roommate back in the day. So doing all that, though, I started to trade that. Let me tell you this, there wasn't a man who stood up behind that podium who graduated back then who didn't personally thank me for what I did with them, for their time in the program. As we grew, it didn't happen anymore. I was no longer there were people who, and now today there's people graduating that maybe I've only socially interacted with, when I come and do chapel for the men on Mondays, there's 50 guys sitting in there, and yeah, some of them, they finished the program and I don't know anything about them, nothing. And I remember having a problem with it. I remember me struggling with that idea of man, I'm not doing what I'm called. And I remember my mentor, he brought it up to me and he said, "Josh, you have to make a decision. Do you want to be that involved and serve 14 people at a time?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you believe that God's calling you to develop a system that's sustainable to serve hundreds of people at a time? And there maybe there's not one that's right or wrong. It's just you have to choose one or the other, because you can't be that involved and build and design something that's large.
I think if I'm honest with myself, there was a period of time where kind of the core of my belief was that I was everybody's savior.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where you realize, I'm here now is I'm nobody's savior.
Nobody's savior.
And it's a very freeing thing to finally, it took me a little, you see the white on my beard. You see Wes is catching up to me.
Oh, bud.
That's called wisdom.
Yeah.
That's the track right there that I took. Yeah. So.
Well, there's people listening to us today who are leading ministries or otherwise involved in leadership. Before we sign off, just if you could paragraph up, Wes, the largest thing that you're most proud of what you've been able to learn and understand and grow into, what would you say that is?
In 2018, I thought I was like 95% sanctified, because that's what we do. That's what we do.
Almost arrived.
Yeah, I'm almost.
Where did you find that meter?
It's very weird.
95%.
Now I feel like there's days where I feel like I'm 7% sanctified.
Right.
Because here's the thing that I'm most proud of, and I'll say this, and I won't get too far in it, is the day that I called on the Lord, it was like he was so close that the glory of the Lord shone round about me, and it was a light that felt like it was within inches from my face. And the sobering day where I realized that the final image was to look like Christ. And he revealed to me how far away I was from that final image, but he was never going to leave me or forsake me, was the day that I came to an understanding that I need him every single day for my own personal life, for my own home, for the ministry. The thing that I'm the most proud about is when I recognized that I'm probably not as sanctified to that level as I thought I was, and I was okay with it because I knew that it was him doing the work and not me.
Jim, most proud of?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty much along the same lines. Being at a ministry for 15 years, going through some of the phases that we've talked about today. When I go to work today, I'm most proud that I have a team and we all believe the same thing, that our job is essentially to point these people to Jesus. And that's what we get to do. We get to do that. And when you're able to stay in that and operate in that, there's just a real sense of freedom in doing this type of work. And I'm really proud that I have been able to get there. The Lord's been able to bring me there, and then I've been able to get a team around me that all kind of share the same vision. So,
yeah, I want to share that. And my thing that I'm most proud of, I think, has a lot to do with you two and the other ministries who've decided to be a part of what we're doing. I'm glad that we have seem to lose, and it exists so hard in the faith ministries aspect of these things. We've seemed to lose and outgrown our scarcity mindset and our competitive spirit, that we feel like we're competing with one another across the state. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's like 14 of our ministries right now who would give us anything that we asked them to, and we would give them anything. You know what I mean? Like that's happening right now. I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is that we're not siloed out there. We cook our sauce a little bit differently than you cook yours and you cook yours, but we just
doctrinally, we're all the same.
Yeah, I believe in y'all's work so much. And, I just want to see it prosper and succeed in all that it does. And I think that took growing for me to get to. Like, it took growing for me not to be envious or jealous when I saw another ministry experiencing something that we didn't get to, like when I saw those things. So I think that's something that you guys have helped me grow into and be a part of, where I can be just as proud as work that's happening that I don't have anything to do with as I am whenever my team gets to accomplish something here. This has been a good chat. Yeah, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. Guys, another episode today, Behind Citgo. We had our guests, Wes and Jim. We're going to put the links to their ministries inside of the conversation box below. If you guys want to check out Ground 40 Ministries in Monroe, Freedom Farm Ministries up in Boone area, And you guys, if you know anyone who needs help, they would be great places to be able to send your folks to find freedom from drug and alcohol addiction. We're signing off. I want you to stick around for a couple minutes after the episode closes, and I want you to hear about a message from one of our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in.